people who are new to this, as soon as they start posting on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or any Pinterest or any social media, I guarantee within an hour you will be attacked. You'll be called a kook, a crazy conspiracy theorist, lots of. You'll be called names and but that's already been debunked. Look at Metabunk and Contrail Science, where this expert Mick West, video game developer, knows it all, and it's and you'll be called all kinds of names. And on my website, linked below here, there's actually a handbook it's called the Shill Handbook that was leaked by Crypto. I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but these are tools, disinformation tools used by the establishment to suppress information about things like genetically modified food, or people, and in the past, people are wiretapping, people are listening to our phone calls. Oh, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. This of course, conspiracy theorist was a term brought up by the CIA after the Kennedy assassination, to suppress discussion and marginalize anybody who was speaking the truth. So it's a very well funded, very well organized effort, and it doesn't cost much to hire or an army of shills. They 30 pieces of silver times the amount of people there. It's not that much, and they will attack you. So shills. On my website, this Shill Handbook, one of the most common techniques, apart from calling your names, there's all kinds of logical fallacies. Look up logical fallacies. There's ad hominems, there's straw man, there's all that kind of stuff. But the techniques used online and in person, one of the most popular ones is Rule 19, which is the 19th one in the handbook, and it is simply stated is: ignore presented evidence, demand impossible proof. So you'll show them all the patents about aluminum. You can show the blood test, the water test, the grain. There's you throw as much evidence at them as possible, and then we'll say, "Oh, but you can't tell it comes from the plane. Why don't you go up and take a sample from, behind a jetliner? Like, we can get up to 30,000 feet in 2 minutes and do. That's Rule 19, and there's many others. So, but if you first post stuff online and you find, everyone's against me, you got to bear in mind these shills you'll have one person who has multiple accounts, Sockpuppets, and they'll try to provoke an emotional response. But the thing is, they are just bored and they got macro keys to do all that stuff. They're not emotionally involved. So why should you? I mean, they're just following. It's like a telemarketer. If they say this, then ask that. It's all it's formulaic for them. It's kind of boring. It's a contract job, and there's a lot of them. And so don't let them bother you. Their karma's going to bite them, in their rear end soon enough. But when you actually start talking to people in real life, random people on the bus or whatever, they actually want to know. I mean, a lot of them will think, I thought they were contrails, because somehow that message has gotten out there, which I am impressed by how somehow, even though they don't want to talk about weather modification much in popular culture, people just seem to think, it's water vapor. I'm impressed. But anyway, so then you can just do a little bit of study how condensation forms. Condensation needs something to condense to. Ice crystals don't just spontaneously stick together, and water doesn't. You need something to attach to. It can be.
You need a relative humidity. You need water saturation.
And there's all kinds of things, but you need basically something to condense to. And there is so much evidence. The skies are different. Everybody knows the skies are different. Just ask anyone over 30, really, because this started in earnest, from the 90s.
It's been in development since the Second World War.
It's been around. It's been around. I mean, people have
the major phase of it started in the end of the 90s.
You know, when you see the checkerboard patterns and dashes and dots, and the other thing which the Shills are having trouble with is sundogs or halos, which are if you look up in the sky. Well, actually, I'll step back a little bit. Water has a refractive index of 1.3 something. A vacuum is 1. It goes from 1 up to whatever, and the refractive index says how much light is bent. Like when you put light through a crystal, it goes a certain direction. It's bent a certain amount. And when you have a lot of randomly shaped particles of water, it could be water or ice, and I mean, you can do it yourself. You just spray, like, you know, with a hose, and you squirt it and it'll sprinkle. You will see a rainbow, which is the same shape as the rainbow you see in the sky when it rains, you know, and it's 42 degrees. What's become depressingly common the world over in the last couple of years, really, I mean, I only started seeing them this last year or so, is a complete circle around the sun, a halo. And if you look at the edge of it, it's you can see all the colors, you know, it's, you know, and water doesn't do that. You know, water makes a big one, so what makes that? And then
it's just ice crystals.
And they say, oh, it's a specially shaped ice crystal. It's a hexagonal one, by the way. You know,
triiodide.
Snowflakes are hexagonal, by the way, but that's a whole other story. So they have this line, and they'll try and beat you up about it. But that's one of my things. Like, anyone can do this research. You can take pictures, you can do video, you can take rainwater samples, and there's labs you can send rainwater off to them, and it's not that expensive. It's like $12 per metal. So you get 3 of them done for about $40. I always test barium, strontium, barium, aluminum, barium, and strontium. So, and typically I live in San Francisco, and whenever it rains, which is rare, I'll collect the rain, send it off to a lab, and I usually get like shockingly high levels of aluminum, which should not be the case since I got 6,000 miles of clear ocean, you know, upwind from me. But earlier this year, there was a 30-day period where there were 21 of these supposedly incredibly rare sundogs, and during that time it rained briefly, and when I got that rainwater analyzed, it came back at 160 micrograms per liter of barium, which was disturbing, considering less than a gram will kill you stone dead. So that also was in the paper which I shared with these scientists. And like I said, I'm just one guy, and you know, I'm not rich, but all of us that went to the conference, we did a GoFundMe, and it was crowdsourced for us to get here.
And thank everybody.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, it's actually, for getting material out there, you can do it very cost effectively. I bought myself off Craigslist this ancient HP 5 office printer from the 90s, and I print boxes, like, you know, when you get a box of papers, like 5 reams, I've got like multiple boxes, just like churn out stuff. And you can use other people's information and adapt it to yourself, but a lot of people are completely unaware of this program, and that's step one. And there are lots of solutions. You know, people talk about doing petitions and, you know, lawsuits and ballot measures and all kinds of things, but I believe that until a lot of people know and there's popular opposition to it, it's going to be difficult to achieve very much. It's
amazing how much it's changed though in the 4 years that I've been raising awareness.
Oh, it's huge increase.
So many more people are aware of what's going on, and that's just because of the collective efforts of everybody who's willing to participate in waking up other people, and it is tremendous. Before when I first started going out with my painted up van, doing tours and raising awareness, a few people were open, but the vast majority of people didn't want to know. And the more recent efforts I've been making, loads of people know. It's absolutely incredible. People are not buying the anthropogenic global warming theory, and when you explain to them that yes, there are weather modification techniques that are more than capable of creating these extremes, it makes a whole lot of sense to them. When you say that Monsanto want to supply the world's food supply because of the implementation of GMOs in response to climate change, and that's been done with weather modification techniques, there's no opposition. They totally get it. They know. They have a low regard for these corporations like Monsanto.
And Nestle, who are buying up water supplies.
Yep, and Bechtel is another one. It's all this corporate grab of all the resources to take total control of everything. People are aware of this. People know that corporations have no morals. They have no scruples. They are unscrupulous, and they will do anything. They will harm people. They will profit from their misery and their poverty. People are aware of this, and when you make the links that these corporations are indeed virtually running our governments.
And governments are less than honest, to put it mildly. And
we all know governments
and everyone
lie.
knows that.
Even David Keith admitted governments lie.
Yeah.
So, yes, governments lie.
Yeah.
It's become much easier to get the message out to people that our governments are in bed with corporations, and corporations want total control, and the people behind the corporations happen to be the same bankers that own everything, basically. And it's not very difficult to get that message across to people. So I'd use that as some sort of encouragement to realise the more people that know, then what happens is you lift the veil of deception. The government's lies stand out as lies. The establishment find it harder to persuade people with their deceptions, and that is because people are willing to participate and find information out for themselves and then share that information with as many people as possible. It doesn't matter if you're just talking to a neighbour over the fence. It doesn't matter if you're in a queue at the shops. It doesn't matter if you're sitting on a bus or whatever.
You don't have to be somebody like yelling and waving a sign on the street. People who like doing that, you do that, But another thing you should look at when people think, wow, it's such a big thing, there's no way we can fight this. Look at the GMO thing.
It's huge.
It's massive. When people first started realizing, maybe there might be some issues with GMO, they were written off as these crazy conspiracy theorists being attacked by Shills online and all the same things that anyone talking about geoengineering / chemtrails / whatever gets called. But in a few years, most people, I think almost everybody knows that they exist, which 10 years ago no one knew about them hardly. And there's there's there have been ballot measures, and there's labeling campaigns and all kinds of stuff. They are fighting back against a supposedly omnipotent enemy, but they're not omnipotent.
No, that's they would love to have everyone believe that they are.
They're not.
But with trying to draw this back to climate engineering, geoengineering, one of the opportunities that came across was I was able to speak with a lot of the people involved with this, and I have spoken with many of the people. They know who I am. And with some of the people I was talking to, particularly at the Berlin Climate Engineering Conference, they confided in me as they felt maybe I was one of them, because they didn't realise they were members of the public. And I was told that they're going to have to start greenwashing geoengineering, just as they did with GMOs and with nanotechnology. They're also going to have to do greenwashing with nanotechnology, because this nanotechnology is now in our foods.
That's a tough sell.
Nanotechnology is in our food now.
Clothes.
The House of Lords Science and Technology Committee 2010 report discussed putting nanotechnology in food. It's already in our food. So if you want to find out, you need to find verifiable sources. That's an example of you can find out these documents online. Greenwashing is a method where they try to make the unacceptable acceptable.
Or necessary.
They find a reason to try and persuade people that what at first you might have thought, no. They're going to try and persuade you, think, okay, maybe it's necessary. It's not necessary. There is no need to control the weather and climate. There is no need. Their plan is to legitimize a long-term goal of climate and weather modification on a global scale. They knew they would have opposition, there would be winners and losers, and this whole program about climate engineering and the climate agenda is trying to get global acquiescence to their agenda, which is known as Agenda 21, Agenda for the 21st century. This is the globalist plans, the oligarchy. They want absolute control, total dominion over the whole planet. Water supply, which they'll get through controlling the weather, hydrological cycles. And of course they privatized all water in every nation. It's now in private hands, corporate hands. Food through the bioeconomy. This is a sub-program of sustainable development, which was also known as Agenda 21. So they basically want to force GMOs on the entire world, except for the elites who have their organic supplies, their private organic supplies. So they want to control water, they want to control food supplies,
energy.
They want to control energy supplies, because they don't want independent energy suppliers. They want a complete monopoly on it. They ultimately want to create a green form of communism, a statism for one world, and in their own words, they call it the New World Order. That's not a conspiracy term. That's a term they coined themselves. Like, for example, in 1996, you've got Mikhail Gorbachev speaking about the coming environmental catastrophe being the international disaster key to unlock the New World Order. And that's pretty heavy statement.
Well, Wells wrote a book called The New World Order, and if you just search the term, every politician says it. It's just, it wasn't just George Bush, it was like Gordon Brown. There's tons of them. I mean, that's that's non-controversial.
No, but they would try to say that that's a conspiracy theory. Yeah. And if you look on Wikipedia, you look up New World Order, it says, it's a conspiracy theory. That's really a bad representation of the facts. That's misinformation.
And when you're researching, don't stop at Wikipedia.
No. Right. Maybe use Wikipedia to look at their sources as a starting point. But never rely on Wikipedia. It's completely skewed for, just to give you information to their point of view. It would be really, really unrealistic to rely on them as a source of information. But they do use references, and sometimes those references are handy to explore further. And actually, talking about references and the use of patents, if you're happy with the source of the patent, the person who's applied for the patent, let's say, for example, it's the United States Navy. You can then go to the patent, and at the bottom of the patent, after reading all the information, you'll find citations and references. It's really important then, if you're satisfied that this patent is credible and there's something of value in it, look at those references and citations at the bottom of the patent, and that will potentially lead you to new sources of information that may be linked and may build up your archive of information.
And another thing, we'll wrap this segment up shortly, is when you look at the lead authors on these patents and papers, see what else they've published. You'll be surprised what you'll find. So I'm going to hit pause here.